How does the human brain really work? Inside your skull sits the most complex object in the known universe, a living network of roughly 86 billion neurons, each one forming thousands of connections, creating a communication system so intricate that even the most advanced supercomputers on Earth still struggle to imitate its full power. Every thought you think, every memory you keep, every fear you feel, every dream you experience, and every decision you make begins as patterns of electrical and chemical activity moving silently through this extraordinary organ. Right now, as you hear these words, your brain is doing something astonishing. It is decoding language, predicting meaning, comparing information with stored memories, filtering distractions, regulating breathing, maintaining heartbeat, monitoring posture, and controlling countless biological systems, all at the same time without demanding your conscious attention. What feels effortless to you is, in reality, one of the greatest miracles of biology. The human brain weighs only about 3 pounds, yet it contains more possible neural connections than there are stars in the. This astonishing complexity gives rise not only to intelligence but to something even more mysterious, consciousness itself, the private inner world of awareness that allows you to know that you exist. To understand how the brain works, we must begin with its smallest major players, neurons. Neurons are specialized cells built to receive, process, and transmit information. Unlike ordinary cells, neurons communicate using electrochemical signals. Tiny electrical impulses called action potentials race down long-branching fibers known as axons, while chemical messengers called neurotransmitters cross microscopic gaps known as synapses, passing signals from one neuron to another. This process happens at incredible speed, millions upon millions of times every second, forming a vast living conversation inside your head. But neurons never work alone. Supporting them are glial cells, once thought to be simple helpers, now understood to be essential partners in brain function. These cells protect neurons, nourish them, clean waste, regulate communication, and even influence learning and memory. In many ways, glial cells are the silent architects that help keep the brain's living city functioning. The architecture of the brain is shaped by evolution, layered like ancient history built upon itself. Deep inside lies the brainstem, one of the oldest structures in evolutionary terms. It controls survival functions, breathing, heartbeat, swallowing, blood pressure, and basic reflexes. You do not consciously command your lungs to expand every few seconds or instruct your heart to beat thousands of times each day. The brainstem quietly handles those responsibilities from the moment you are born until the final moment of life. Above it sits structures involved in movement, balance, and coordination, especially the cerebellum, which fine-tunes motion with astonishing precision. When you catch a falling object, walk across uneven ground, or type quickly without looking at your fingers, the cerebellum is performing silent calculations far faster than conscious thought. Then we enter the limbic system, often described as the emotional core of the brain. Here sits the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deeply involved in fear detection, threat assessment, and emotional salience. Long before conscious reasoning catches up, the amygdala can trigger a survival response, accelerating heart rate, sharpening senses, and preparing the body for action. This rapid alarm system once helped early humans survive predators and danger, but in modern life it also reacts to psychological threats, stress, anxiety, social rejection, uncertainty, sometimes activating survival circuits even when no physical danger exists. Nearby is the hippocampus, a critical structure for forming new memories. Without it, new experiences would struggle to become lasting memories. The hippocampus acts like a memory organizer, helping convert short-term experiences into long-term storage across broader brain networks. Damage here can profoundly disrupt the ability to form new memories, revealing how fragile and precious memory truly is. Above these deeper systems rises the cerebral cortex, the wrinkled outer layer that gives the human brain much of its extraordinary power. This folded surface dramatically increases processing area within the limited space of the skull. Different cortical regions specialize in different functions: vision, sound processing, language, movement, planning, abstract thought, self-reflection, and imagination. The frontal lobes, especially the prefrontal cortex, are central to reasoning, impulse control, planning, and decision-making. This region allows humans to think ahead, weigh consequences, resist impulses, and create complex societies built on long-term goals. Yet this rational center does not always dominate. Often, emotional systems act first and reason arrives later to explain what has already been emotionally decided. This creates one of the most fascinating truths in neuroscience. Much of what we call conscious choice may begin unconsciously, deep beneath awareness. Before the thinking mind constructs a narrative of deliberate decision, memory itself is far stranger than most people realize. We often imagine memory as a recording device, faithfully storing events exactly as they happened. But the brain does not store memory like a camera stores video. Instead, it reconstructs memory from fragments, sensory details, emotional tone, meaning, and associations, reassembling experiences each time they are recalled. This means memory is dynamic, not fixed. Each act of remembering can subtly reshape what is remembered. Emotion strongly influences this process. Highly emotional experiences are often remembered more vividly because stress hormones strengthen encoding, yet even vivid memories can contain distortions. In this sense, your remembered past is partly history and partly reconstruction, a living story rewritten every time it is recalled. And perhaps most extraordinary of all is this: your brain is not static. It is constantly rewiring itself through neuroplasticity. Every repeated thought strengthens certain neural pathways. Every learned skill reshapes circuitry. Every habit, good or bad, carves patterns deeper into the brain's living network. Practice literally changes physical structure. Meditation can alter attention networks. Trauma can strengthen fear circuits. Learning a language can build new neural connections. Recovery after injury can sometimes recruit new brain regions to perform lost functions. This remarkable adaptability means the brain is not merely something you are born with, it is something you continuously become. Every experience leaves a biological trace, slowly sculpting the architecture of mind itself. Yet for all science has discovered, the deepest mystery remains untouched at its core. How does matter become experience? How do electrical pulses, chemical messengers, and biological tissue create the feeling of red, the pain of heartbreak, the warmth of love, the terror of fear, the wonder of music, the vividness of dreams, and the silent awareness of being you? This is known as the hard problem of consciousness, and despite astonishing advances in neuroscience, no complete answer exists. Scientists can identify brain regions involved in awareness, detect networks associated with conscious processing, and observe how anesthesia switches awareness off and waking brings it back. But how physical processes create subjective inner life remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in all of science. And perhaps that is what makes the human brain so extraordinary. It is the only object in the known universe capable of studying itself, questioning its own nature, and wondering why it exists at all. Sleep may appear to be a period of silence, but inside the human brain it becomes one of the busiest and most important phases of life. During deep sleep, networks of neurons shift into synchronized rhythms that help restore energy balance, regulate hormones, strengthen immune defenses, and repair microscopic wear caused by waking activity. At the same time, the brain begins an extraordinary housekeeping process. Specialized waste-clearing pathway, often called the glymphatic system, becomes more active during sleep, helping flush away metabolic byproducts that build up while you are awake. This nightly cleansing may play a critical role in long-term brain health. Without sufficient sleep, attention weakens, emotional regulation becomes unstable, memory suffers, and decision-making declines, revealing that sleep is not passive rest, but active neurological maintenance essential for survival and intelligence itself. Then comes dreaming, one of the strangest experiences created by the mind. During rapid eye movement sleep, the brain can become intensely active, sometimes nearly as active as when fully awake, yet sensory input from the outside world is reduced while motor systems are partially suppressed, preventing most dream movements from being physically acted out. In this internally generated theater, memory fragments, emotion, imagination, and symbolic processing blend into vivid realities that can feel intensely meaningful, bizarre, beautiful, or frightening. Scientists still debate why we dream. Some theories suggest dreams help process emotion, rehearse threats, integrate memories, strengthen creativity, or reorganize learning. Whatever the full answer may be, dreams reveal a profound truth. Even when consciousness disconnects from external reality, the brain continues constructing worlds of astonishing complexity from within itself. Equally mysterious is attention, the brain's ability to select one signal from endless competing information. At any moment, your senses deliver an overwhelming flood of data. Sights, sounds, touch, internal body signals, memories, emotional cues, and background thoughts. If all of this reached conscious awareness equally, the mind would be overloaded almost instantly. Instead, the brain acts like a powerful filter. Attention networks decide what becomes important and what fades into the background. This is why you may suddenly notice your name spoken in a noisy room, why fear makes threatening signals stand out, and why deep focus can make you lose awareness of time itself. Attention shapes reality more than most people realize. In a meaningful sense, what you repeatedly attend to becomes the world you psychologically live in. Focus trains the brain's circuitry, strengthening some networks while weakening others, gradually influencing thought patterns, emotion, and behavior over time. Emotion is often misunderstood as the opposite of reason, but neuroscience shows emotion is deeply integrated with thinking. Feelings are not simply reactions layered on top of logic, they are part of the machinery that guides choice, memory, learning, and survival. The brain constantly evaluates experience in terms of meaning: safe or dangerous, rewarding or harmful, familiar or uncertain, socially accepted or rejected. These emotional signals influence nearly every decision. Patients with damage to emotional processing regions may retain intelligence yet struggle profoundly with ordinary decision-making because they lose emotional guidance that helps prioritize action. In other words, reason alone is often not enough. Emotion gives decisions weight, urgency, and value. Love motivates sacrifice, fear sharpens vigilance, curiosity drives exploration, and social pain activates brain circuits overlapping with physical pain, showing that emotional suffering is neurologically real, not merely poetic description. The brain's reward system adds another powerful layer to behavior. Networks involving dopamine help assign motivational significance, pushing you toward what the brain predicts may be valuable, pleasurable, or important for survival. Dopamine is often misunderstood as simply the chemical of pleasure, but it is more accurately tied to wanting, seeking, and anticipation. It fuels pursuit, food, achievement, novelty, social approval, and countless goals. This system helped human ancestors survive by motivating exploration and persistence. But in modern environments filled with hyperstimulating technologies, processed foods, and endless novelty, reward systems can become overstimulated, training the brain to crave quick bursts of satisfaction while weakening patience for slower rewards. Habits form when repeated reward loops strengthen neural pathways until behavior becomes increasingly automatic. This same mechanism can build mastery or addiction, depending on what is repeatedly reinforced. Perhaps nothing reveals the brain's hidden power more clearly than the subconscious mind. Much of brain activity happens outside awareness. Pattern recognition, emotional evaluation, language processing, movement coordination, memory association, and rapid judgment all occur beneath conscious thought. Your conscious mind experiences only a small fraction of total processing, more like the visible tip of an immense iceberg. Beneath awareness, the brain constantly predicts what will happen next, updating internal models of reality based on incoming information. In fact, modern neuroscience increasingly views perception itself not as passive observation but as active prediction. The brain generates expectations about the world, then compares incoming sensory data against those expectations, constantly refining its model. What you experience as reality is partly external input and partly the brain's best prediction of what is out there. This predictive machinery explains illusions, biases, expectation effects, and even why two people can interpret the same event in radically different ways. And still, with every discovery, the mystery deepens. The human brain is not simply an organ of thought. It is a self-modifying biological universe that creates memory, emotion, imagination, dreams, identity, and awareness itself. It keeps your heart beating while writing poetry, solves equations while feeling grief, creates music while fearing death, and asks questions about the cosmos while being made of the same matter as stars. In trying to understand the brain, humanity is doing something extraordinary. The universe, through the human mind, is becoming aware enough to study its own awareness. And that may be one of the most astonishing facts
Beyond memory,
ever known. Emotion, sleep, and subconscious processing lies one of the most remarkable abilities of the human brain, its power to create a sense of self. From the moment you wake in the morning, there is a continuous feeling that you are the same person who existed yesterday, the same mind carrying memories, beliefs, hopes, fears, and identity across time. Yet neuroscience suggests that this stable sense of self may be less fixed than it appears. The brain is constantly reconstructing identity from memory, bodily sensation, emotional state, and social experience, weaving these streams into the story you call me. In many ways, the self is not a single thing hidden somewhere inside the brain. It is an active process continuously generated moment by interacting neural networks. This realization leads to a profound scientific question. If the brain creates the experience of self, then who or what is experiencing that creation? One of the key systems involved in self-reflection is a collection of brain regions often referred to as the default mode network. This network becomes especially active when the mind is not focused on an external task. During daydreaming, reflection, remembering the past, imagining the future, or thinking about yourself and others. It is deeply involved in narrative identity, helping construct the internal story of who you are. But this same system also contributes to rumination, anxiety, and overthinking when left unchecked. The human brain's ability to mentally travel through time, reliving painful memories or imagining possible futures, is a powerful evolutionary gift, yet it also creates psychological suffering unknown in simpler nervous systems. A brain advanced enough to imagine greatness is also advanced enough to imagine disaster. This double-edged capacity gives humans extraordinary creativity and extraordinary vulnerability. The brain's social intelligence is equally astonishing. Human survival depended not only on physical strength but on cooperation, communication, empathy, and the ability to understand other minds. Neural systems evolved to read facial expressions, detect tone of voice, interpret intention, and predict how others may think or feel. Specialized networks help generate empathy, the capacity to internally simulate another person's emotional state, allowing humans to bond, cooperate, and build complex societies. Social rejection activates neural pain pathways, revealing that belonging is not merely a luxury but a deeply wired biological need. Loneliness is not simply sadness. Prolonged isolation can alter stress hormones, impair cognition, weaken immunity, and reshape brain function itself. The human brain is profoundly social by design. In a real biological sense, minds help shape one another. Language represents another leap in neural complexity. Through language, the brain converts thought into symbols, symbols into sound, and sound back into meaning inside another mind. This ability allows ideas to move across generations, civilizations, and continents. Entire scientific revolutions, philosophies, cultures, and histories exist because the human brain learned to encode inner thought into shared systems of communication. Yet language also shapes how thought itself is organized. Words influence memory categories, emotional labeling, and conceptual understanding. The brain does not merely use language, it is transformed by it. Through words, humans can imagine impossible worlds, design technologies never before seen, and communicate abstract truths far beyond immediate experience. Still, the brain is not flawless. It is powerful but full of biases, shortcuts, and vulnerabilities shaped by evolution. Cognitive biases influence judgment in ways people rarely notice. The brain seeks patterns even in randomness, remembers emotionally charged events more vividly than ordinary truth, and often favors information that confirms existing beliefs. Fear can distort probability. Desire can distort reasoning. Group belonging can shape perception of truth. In this way, the brain is not simply a truth-detecting machine. It is a survival machine, optimized by evolution not always for perfect accuracy, but for fast decisions, social cohesion, and adaptation under uncertainty. Understanding these limits is essential, because some of the greatest challenges humanity faces, conflict, misinformation, prejudice, impulsive behavior, emerge from ancient brain systems operating in a modern world they were never originally designed for. And yet, despite all its imperfections, the human brain possesses something extraordinary: the ability to observe itself, question its own patterns, and consciously reshape them. Through reflection, education, disciplined practice, therapy, meditation, learning, and meaningful experience, people can gradually alter thought habits, emotional responses, and behavior. This capacity for self-awareness and intentional change may be one of the greatest evolutionary breakthroughs ever to emerge on Earth. The brain is not only capable of generating anger, fear, addiction, and suffering, it is equally capable of compassion, wisdom, resilience, creativity, and profound transformation. Within the same 3-pound organ exists the machinery for cruelty and kindness, despair and hope, destruction and genius, which brings us back to the greatest mystery of all, consciousness. Why should neural activity feel like anything from the inside? Why is there a first-person experience at all? Why does seeing color produce vivid subjective sensation? Why does music create chills, grief create ache, beauty create awe, and love create meaning? Science continues to map mechanisms, but the raw fact of experience, the existence of an inner world, remains deeply mysterious. Perhaps future discoveries will reveal answers that today seem unimaginable, or perhaps consciousness will remain one of nature's deepest secrets. What is certain is this: inside every human skull exists a universe more complex than any machine humanity has ever built. A living network that dreams, remembers, imagines, suffers, heals, questions, and wonders. To study the brain is in many ways to stand at the edge of the greatest frontier known, not outer space but inner space, the vast hidden cosmos inside the human mind.